Hello and welcome back to Matt's Tottenham blog and to another match review live stream. Today I'm going to be talking about that game against Olympiacos. We of course drew 2-2 in the Champions League. The game just ended in the last couple of moments. I'm going to be going through my review of that game first, and afterwards I'm going to be taking your questions, comments and opinions as I suppose we try and dissect what we just saw out in Athens. So before I get started, if you want to get more live streams like this, more match reviews, breaking news videos and much more on this channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and click that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. So I suppose getting straight into the game, it was a very poor start, and it was kind of, as I've been saying in my preview, it was what we were expecting, I suppose, from the start of that game. Playing against an Olympiacos team who they like to start these games strong. They have an incredible support in their home stadium, and that was evident from the get-go. Really, you could see the fans were whistling, they were jeering every time we were in possession, and they were really getting behind that Olympiacos team. And I think you can see Tottenham suffered from it throughout the whole game. I suppose our performance was really lacklustre. It was just not what we expected. And coming in after that game against Crystal Palace on Saturday, you'd expect that we try to build a bit of momentum. And I think straight away it was a bit disrupted by the changes that Pochettino made to the starting 11. But I feel as though they were entirely justified, because obviously he left Rose and Aurier at home, which is something that did surprise me a bit. But having played on Saturday, now we're playing, I know it was an early game on the Wednesday, but now we're back in action at 12:30 on Saturday against Leicester. I think it was certainly the right decision to change things up a bit, because it's a bit difficult players playing such high tempo games, and we were a bit lucky in that with that Palace game on Saturday that we were able to relax a bit, because we got that game truly killed off in the first half. But we certainly suffered early on in this game. Olympiacos for the first 20-25 minutes were, I wouldn't say by far the better team, but they did a lot more with the possession that they had. We had one half chance, I think, Eriksen making a break down the middle. He could have played the ball out to Harry Kane, but it was a poor pass from him in the end. And it was all Olympiacos, as I said, in that first 20-25 minutes in terms of chances created and stuff. Padense had a decent effort saved from Hugo Lloris. It was the first opportunity of the game, and Valbuena was causing us a lot of problems. I think he was the best player out in that pitch tonight. Guerrero had a chance, he struck the post. Lloris did make a few good saves, but I think we were really helped by the fact that Olympiacos' finishing was completely off in that first half. Welcome Max, Matthew and Ron to the stream, and Delboy as well. As you're saying, that was painful. But then we had a massive stroke of luck with Harry Kane winning that penalty. It was completely against the run of play. Alan Harry saying, I think we were lucky to get the draw. I think you might be right. Welcome Alexander to the stream as well. Harry Kane, in winning that penalty, it was such a poor challenge from, I think with Moura was the Olympiacos defender. And he seemed, Harry Kane kind of cut in off the right hand side, and he seemed to have gotten the ball, the defender, he kind of knocked it away. And then he just had another kick out at Harry Kane, and we were very lucky, because even the BT Sport commentators were saying it was a very strange challenge for him, and he was trying to complain, he was giving out to the referee, but it was without a doubt the right decision. We deserved that penalty, and you can kind of trust Harry Kane to put them away 99% of the time. And it was a coolly dispatched penalty. You know, people have gotten so used to him now whipping them into the corner. And I suppose that's what cost him in the game against Kosovo, when Murray made the save from his penalty in the international break. And he switched up a bit and he put it down the middle. And it worked. We got the goal. We were 1-0 up. And straight away you could see the game kind of changed a bit. You had the Olympiacos fans weren't whistling and jeering every time we got possession. And we were a bit more confident. And then we got the second goal 4 minutes later. Excellent work by Ben Davies to win that back on the transition. He got right in ahead of that. I think it was Padense. And he did well, got down the wing, and it was a really good ball pulled back to Lucas Moura. But it was the centre back who made that so easy for Moura to get into a shooting position, because when Davis made that pass across him, the defender tried to step up and intercept it, ultimately got nowhere near the ball, which of course allowed Lucas Moura to have the space. He took a brilliant touch out in front of him, and the finish was absolutely exquisite. There was no way the keeper was going to keep that out. And we were cruising at that stage. We were 2-0 up, and it certainly wasn't a lead that we would have fully deserved. Matt in Full Vision saying, I'm very disappointed with the performance. We were dominated in the first half, and I suppose after that goal the game did kind of start to balance out a bit. There was a few half chances for each team, and then the goal that we conceded just before the break, it was a good move. I mean, Padense showed he had a lot of pace. He's a real quality player, but I think in that moment when he has the ball out in the right wing and he plays that ball into the middle of the park, I'm not sure who we gave it to, But I think a player of his pace, and you can see from the way that he was playing, as soon as he passed that ball, he wasn't just going to stand idle and wait for the ball to come back to him. He was going to make a move. So I think, obviously, it's very difficult to deal with a player of that pace. But Davis, he should have started to retreat. He should have dropped a bit and got into the space that you know Podence would want to run into. But he didn't, and it was a great ball back to Podence. And because of Davis, he was a bit slow to react to the situation. He was completely out of the game. Your man's first touch was absolutely sensational. Put him right in on goal. It took Vertonghen out of the game. And Alderweireld, he was trying to get back in. I think if he slid, he might have blocked that. But I think that's kind of looking for an issue, I suppose. And it was a great finish from him into the far corner. But they even said it at half-time in the studio. It was just like that Arsenal game. We went into a 2-0 lead and conceded one right before half-time. I see Paranormal Frank saying, what the hell is Dele starting? He hasn't put 1 minute in this season and Poch started him. This is Champions League. Yeah, it was... that was something I was definitely a bit surprised with. I even said it in my starting lineup reaction video that I posted before the game. You know, in a game like that, I said it in my preview as well, you'd like to have the pace of Lucas on one side and Son on the other. And I see Alexander Hilton as well saying Son should have started. I know that's something Alexander even said before the game. He was wondering why Son wasn't in the team, and I do think it was a tactical decision, mainly so we could have him for that game against Leicester on Saturday, because you'd expect that to be a much more difficult game. But the starting lineup, like it was a really strong team, and I think the players that were out there should have been capable of beating that Olympiacos side, especially considering we went into a 2-goal lead. But it was Dele and Eriksen were very, very poor. Alan Harry saying, I've never seen Eriksen give away so many balls, he was so sloppy. And Alexander saying, who gave Eriksen sleeping pills? They were really, really poor. But then going into the second half, we started well. We really did start well. That we had that disallowed goal for Dele Alli. Tarek saying Ali should never start again. I think, sorry, comment there about Winks. In that start of that second half, we were really well. We were playing really well, and it was the first time Olympiacos got forward, and we really struggled to deal with that one attack. They were passing it well. To be fair, down the right hand side, Olympiacos played really, really well, and it was quite difficult to deal with. I think perhaps Danny Rose down that side of the pitch might have had a better chance to deal with the pace of Podence, and with Valbuena and Podence swapping wings and stuff, someone like Rose would be better equipped to dealing with him, because you saw when Podence went out onto the left hand side after Matthew Valbuena was subbed off and Rajelovic came on, you could see Davinson Sanchez had a much easier time of dealing with Podence. And I know it was after a lot of football, and Podence would have tired and not had the same impact, but I think Danny Rose would have had more joy against him down that side. But we seem to have kind of dealt with that attack, and the ball came out to Christian Eriksen at the edge of the box, and you're thinking, whip it out the wing, turn, make a pass, but he stood completely still, and it just kind of summed up his night. And then someone came in, nipped the ball off him, and then it went into, I think it was Valbuena in the box. He had his back to goal, and it was a really naive challenge from Jan Vertonghen to try and get that foot around him, and he just stamped on his ankle, and it was a stonewall penalty. There were complaints there. It was never going to be overturned. I think all of the important decisions tonight, referee and VAR, they did get them right. They were both penalties, and it was a coolly dispatched penalty from Matthew Valbuena. But you could see as soon as that penalty goal went in, the game completely changed. Olympiacos were so content to get that, just to get a point, having been 2-0 down. I think even before the game they would have taken a point, because the Greeks wouldn't watch the Premier League as much as most people would. They're really hardcore ultra fans in that league, but from their point of view, they're not playing Tottenham, who've started poorly in the Premier League, or Tottenham, who have been really bad in away form. For them, they're playing Champions League finalists, and we didn't play like you'd expect Champions League finalists to play. And after that, it was the game for about 20 minutes. It really kind of quietened down. There was nothing much happening. They took Valbuena off, which was our saving grace, because it seemed as though when they got that equaliser, if they wanted the game, it was there for them. And if they had made some bit of effort to take the game to Tottenham and try and get that winning goal, I think they could have found it, because we were just so poor on the night. We had a few chances. I think the substitutions made by Pochettino were a bit confusing. I know Ndombele coming off, he's just back from injury. You can understand that he was taken off. And then ideally, I suppose the next two subs would have seen Dele Alli and Christian Eriksen come off because of how poor they were on the night. He did take Dele Alli off. He was replaced by Heung-min Son, and then Lucas Moura picked up cramp, and he couldn't leave him on the pitch, so he had to leave Christian Eriksen on. And there were a few chances that we did have, even actually before those subs, with Dele Alli going in on goal. He had the chance to square to Kane, and he hasn't scored a goal in so long, especially in the Champions League. you can understand that he went for goal. But I think in hindsight, even he realises straight away he should have made that pass to Harry Kane, but he didn't. It was a good save from the keeper. There was a chance where even Lamela got in down the left hand side after the corner. This is much later on in the game, and he should have squared it to Kane. He went for goal, and it was a good save from the keeper there. And we just came quite close after that, but we couldn't find the goal, and I think our performance didn't really deserve a victory. And it's fair to say that it was those players behind the striker who just didn't do it for us. Lucas Moura obviously was decent, he got his goal. Even when Heung-min Son came on, I can actually only remember him picking up possession once and running with the ball, and obviously it came to nothing. Aliari saying, why are we adopting long balls and counter-attacking football against these small teams while we can dominate the game and create more chances than waiting on one lucky ball? Alexander Owers saying, woeful performance, although it shows that the starting 11 from Palace is the best right now. Paranormal Frank saying, in my opinion, with the Eriksen situation, he doesn't want to be here. Poch shouldn't play him. The Eriksen era is over. I'd only play him if we run into injury problems. Alan Harry saying, we need a Ferguson hairdryer moment at halftime to wake up the players. But it's just the story. It's been the story of the last couple of years, complete and utter inconsistency. That game against Crystal Palace, it was that Tottenham team that we remember seeing from White Hart Lane. It was the Tottenham team that made us fall in love with the club again. It made us fall in love with Pochettino. It was the high press, the quick, intense play when we get in possession, the ruthlessness in front of goal, and being able to sit back and relax for the second half. Obviously, in this case, to prepare for this Champions League game. But you can't make any excuses for that performance tonight. It was a hostile environment in a hostile atmosphere in a difficult environment. You can say all you want about that, but it's getting to the stage now where this Tottenham side, fourth or fifth time in the Champions League. They're not an inexperienced team. The players that are out there are experienced European players, and they've played in a final now. They've been and done it against Real Madrid, against Borussia Dortmund, against Man City, against Ajax, who knocked out Real Madrid and Juventus. They're experienced players, and they should be able to deal with these occasions. But ultimately, it just seems right now as though they're not. And that's a real concern, and definitely something that Mauricio Pochettino needs to address, and he needs to get dealt with as quickly as possible. Now, before I go on any further, if you are enjoying the stream, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and share it out on Twitter, Facebook, whatever. I'd really appreciate it. Jerwin Stevens saying Eriksen needs to go, Dybala in, and that seems like a possibility in January that Eriksen, even though he might be going for free on a pre-contract, Dybala coming in it's not. I wouldn't say it's likely, but I certainly think as though it is definitely a possibility. Alan Harry saying, we always seem to struggle when teams really defend strongly. We just can't seem to break down teams, and that's again going back to that last season at White Hart Lane. That's what we had then. We had the ability to break down those teams and pick out those key passes. And I think the fixture in particular that you can kind of look at and show that it does. We did have that ability was that run we had against Stoke where we beat them by 4 goals in 4 consecutive games or something. And Stoke are a notoriously difficult team to play, especially when you're going to the Britannia Stadium, and we beat them 4-0 there 2 seasons in a row. And the fact that we were able to so easily rip apart a team like that, who, as I said, are so not historically, but recently kind of compact in defence, even though they were coming towards the end of the time in the Premier League. We had the ability to break down a team. If a team came and attacked us, we could counter-attack them. If they went and sat behind the ball, we could break them down. And we were able to, I suppose, adapt our game to whatever was needed for that particular fixture. And it doesn't seem as though we have that anymore, which is quite worrying. Delboy saying, Madrid won't want Eriksen after watching that, let's be honest. He's not helping himself playing like that on the world stage. Yeah, it was something that the commentators were addressing almost every single time he got the ball, which I think is a bit harsh. Like, you have to kind of not try and read or focus on it too much, but it was a really poor performance from him. And it said something like about an hour, 70 minutes into the game, that his pass success rate was only about 70%, which is it's absolutely woeful, especially for a player of his quality who you'd expect to be the player who'd be keeping the possession for us, keeping it when we get into the final third, stringing the little attacks together, and he absolutely could not do that tonight. Now, I was going to look a bit into the stats for this game, and just at a quick glance, it doesn't really make for great reading. Olympiacos had 17 shots compared to our 10, which I think kind of tells us the story. 5 shots on target each, which obviously is even. We had 56% possession. We had more passes. We just edged it in pass accuracy. And we doubled their corners as well. So it's too much, I suppose, there that you could talk about. It was a fairly even game in general. They had a few more shots. We had a bit more possession. But it was Christian Eriksen who was, I suppose, in a game like this, the player that you'd want to kind of take the game and be that man who changes it for us, be the one who's picking out that key pass. And the bit that got me was right at the end. Olympiacos had a bit of a spell, they had a corner and stuff, and we had the chance to break, and the ball fell to Christian Eriksen in the middle of our half, and Heung-min Son was making a brilliant run down the left hand side. The Olympiacos defence was gone, there was nothing in between him and the goal, and for a player of Christian Eriksen's quality, it is something that he's done so many times in the past. It was such a simple ball over the defence, and Heung-min Son's in on goal, and a player on his form of his quality, he's going to put that past the keeper 99 times out of 100. And Christian Eriksen tried to play it on the ground between the two midfielders in front of him and easily intercepted, and that was that. The game was over. And that was the bit that got me, because that was the moment where, regardless of how poor Eriksen's performance had been throughout the game, if he had managed to make that pass, put Son in on goal, it's all forgotten. He's changed the game for us. But he couldn't, and it's really annoying that he is so inconsistent in this way. Jerwin saying if Eriksen doesn't sign a new contract in 1 month, we need to sell him for making some money, and unfortunately that does seem to be the case. We might have to sell him for 20-30 million in January, which is, given the situation, it might be a good deal for us. Alexander Ower saying today also reinstated how big of a loss Giovanni Lo Celso is. We needed someone who can actually carry the ball and beat a man, something Eriksen can't do even when he's playing well. I wouldn't even go so far as to say it shows we were missing Lo Celso. Obviously, it would be better to have him, a player who is experienced in the international and the European stage. But looking at the players that were on the bench, Heung-min Son and Eric Lamela, they were certainly players who could have done a lot better in that situation. Alexander's also saying, I thought the idea after the European window closed was that we would kick on like we did against Palace. We regressed to Newcastle levels today. We will get beat by the Foxes if we don't improve. And I think that's a perfectly fair comment. Sogno Rosso saying, greetings from Greece and from an Olympiacos fan. Good luck in the Premier League. Nice game tonight. It was fair play to you for getting the point. I think you're the better team in this game. And I obviously hope you don't do well in the Champions League, but I wish you all the best in the Greek League. And even saying that, Olympiacos have had a fantastic start to the season. They're top of the league. They haven't conceded a goal yet. They have a 100% record. They haven't lost a game since the end of April. They've only lost one home game in the last 12 months. They're on an outstanding run of form, and I think that's why when they did go 2-0 down, their heads didn't drop. They always felt as though they could turn that down. Alan Harry saying, look on the bright side, guys. We started better than we did last year, and we made the final. Buying back, keep your chin up. Thanks for joining the stream, Alan. But that is really true. I mean, last season we started throwing away a lead as well away to Inter Milan, but it was ultimately a 2-1 defeat at the San Siro that time. Tarek saying Lamela is inconsistent, you can't rely on him. He is, but it seems to get to the stage now where every player on our team is inconsistent, and that's really frustrating to see. But Lamela has performed every time he's been on the pitch this season, maybe with the exception of that Newcastle game, but everyone was absolutely diabolical that day. But I think Eric Lamela would have been a player who, given the form that he's on, the confidence that he does have now, he could have changed that game. And Dele Alli, I think, is the player that should not have been in that starting 11 tonight. It was his first start to the season. Obviously he's been injured, but he kind of looked as though every time he was running, you were kind of waiting for him to pull up, grab his hamstring. He just seemed a bit kind of cautious not to overexert himself, because we know how much he has suffered from hamstring injuries, and it seems as though that's in the back of his mind, and it could be there maybe for the rest of the career now if this injury sequence for him does continue, which is quite disappointing. Alexander saying about Lamela, at least he gives everything. He upped our energy when he came on, and that's the thing with Lamela. Even when he hasn't had that quality, he has, every time he's been on the pitch, given absolutely everything, and that's something that you cannot fault him on. He does give everything every time he's on the pitch. Jerwin saying you can't not always win in football, or you cannot always win in football. Look at Chelsea and Liverpool lost yesterday, and they were, I suppose for Chelsea more so, a very, very disappointing defeat for them. But looking at England, having had all of the places in the major European finals last year, that we've all gotten off to really poor starts now. Liverpool and Chelsea, of course, losing last night. Tottenham throwing away a 2-goal lead and drawing away to Olympiacos. And Man City now, at the moment, they're away to Shakhtar Donetsk. It's 0-0 there. But City, they lost this fixture last season. I know Donetsk aren't quite the team that they were back then, but it is the potential for a really, really disappointing start to these competitions for the English teams after such an amazing season for them last year. And looking at the Europa League fixtures for those Arsenal fans, Arsenal are away to Eintracht Frankfurt tomorrow, and Wolves are facing, if I can find it here, United at home to Astana when you expect them to win. I can't quite find the Wolves one here. No, I can't see it. But it's really disappointing for the English teams to have gotten off to this start. David Webb saying, Winks and Moore are the only ones showing any desire today. Shocking performance, Eriksen needs to be on the bench. Delboy saying, I never want to see Davinson at right back again. Not blaming him, but Poch is just shoehorning him in the team because he loves him. Aurier and Walker Peters both fit actual right backs. And I think today probably showed why Sanchez isn't a long-term option for the right back position. I think he did very well against Arsenal. I was very happy with his performance. But what he was doing then was purely a defensive performance. He wasn't expected to get up in attack too much because of the nature of the fixture. But today he was seeing a lot. There was so much space down that right-hand side for him to move into, but he seemed a bit reluctant. And even when he did get in there, he couldn't cross it. And there was even a few times he tried to play a pass back to Lucas Moura, back to Tanguy and Dembele, and it was just he couldn't seem to get those passes together from that position. And I do think that cost us. With Kyle Walker-Peters in the squad, maybe he shouldn't have started because obviously he's just coming back from injury. But Serge Aurier, with that outstanding performance against Crystal Palace on Saturday, I think he might have been a better option. And I see Tarek asking why Aurier and Rose were missing. There's no official word on that, but it seems to just be a tactical thing. Poch did it last season. I think the first game he left out Toby Alderweireld and some other player. I can't remember who it was, but he made a weird decision in the opening Champions League game. I don't know why, but it just seems to be a thing that he does like to do. But I'd certainly expect them to be back in the team for the Leicester game on Saturday because there has been no talk of an injury for them. Alexander Hinton saying Wolves are playing Braga tomorrow, which is a tough game for them. Jerwin saying, what do you think about selling Eriksen and buying Dybala, or giving Eriksen a new contract and buying Dybala? Obviously, ideally there it would be giving Eriksen a new contract and then selling him, because if we sell him in the situation that we are now, if it gets to January, if we're going to sell him, it might only be for 20, 30, 40 million max, or we let him go for free next summer if he does sign a pre-contract. But I think if we do tie him down to a contract now, we can get a bit more money, but maybe 60, 70, and that would fund the majority of that Dybala deal. And I think then it's just a matter of getting those image rights sorted out. So I think the ideal situation at the moment, because Eriksen just doesn't seem to be devoted to the club, even though he had that really good performance on Saturday, he doesn't seem to have the desire that he should have, I suppose. I think giving Eriksen a new contract, then selling him and bringing Dybala in would probably be the best for us at the moment. Johnny Frisco saying, what a contrast to Saturday. Spurs should have taken the game to Olympiacos from the start. Overall poor performance. And yeah, it was... Jermaine Gina's touched on it in commentary as well. In that first half, whenever we got the ball, we slowed it down, and it didn't seem as though it was just a sloppy thing. It seemed particularly intentional that whenever we got the ball, we'd slow it down. And I don't really see the benefit of that. I know, like, you're trying to, maybe get the fans disinterested, or maybe tire them out because they were whistling and jeering every time we got possession. But I don't really see where that benefited us, because we were slow in possession, just passing it around the midfield. But as soon as Olympiacos got the ball like that, they were gone, with Potense and Valbuena breaking up the wings. There didn't seem to be any advantage at all of us kind of just slowing down that game. And there was a few strange things out there tonight. And it's certainly a game that we should have won, as I've been saying. Alexander Hinton saying PSG have scored. So they're playing Real Madrid in the Champions League at the moment. There was one more early game today. It was Club Brugge against Galatasaray that finished 0-0. So that's the only goal in the Champions League so far in the late games. PSG won up against Real Madrid. That's, I imagine, going to be a really good game. Angel Di Maria with the goal there. The other games that are on, Bayern Munich of course playing Red Star Belgrade in our group. That's 0-0 after 15 minutes on at the Allianz Arena. In Man City's group, they're drawing 0-0 with Shakhtar Donetsk, and Dinamo Zagreb are 1-up against Atlanta. And then Atletico Madrid against Juventus and Bayer Leverkusen against Lokomotiv Moscow are both goalless at the moment. Delboy saying, we're not going to get any money for Eriksen. He'd rather take the free transfer and get a massive wage. Also, nobody will pay when they can get him for free 6 months later. And I suppose, as you say that about the massive wage, that is, I suppose, another kind of encouraging thing, or another, I can't think of the word, incentive for Christian Eriksen to not sign a new contract, because if a team's going to get him for free, he can straight away demand a massive signing on fee. I think it's what Aaron Ramsey actually did at Arsenal. He was paid a good couple of million as a signing on fee when he joined Juventus. And Juventus, of course, the kings of free transfers. You look at the players they've signed: Andrea Pirlo, Paul Pogba, Fernando Llorente, Aaron Ramsey, Adrian Rabiot, and one of their centre-backs, Mehdi Benatia as well. They're the kings of free transfers, and that is somewhere that Christian Eriksen could end up. But as you say, if a team doesn't have to pay a transfer fee, they're going to offer a lot more money to Christian Eriksen, and I'm sure he's aware of that, which is an incentive for him to not sign a new contract. Paranormal Frank saying, lads, no more Eriksen, 6 years and no trophies with him. We need new blood, hopefully Dybala. Whoever Levy has to buy, a proven quality creative player, no young maybe players, which I think is a great point. Levy now with Pochettino typically has brought in players who are young with the potential. It has worked out for the most part. Of course, Dele Alli being the main one, and Delboy saying as well, Emre Can for Juventus. But right now we do need to sign players who can jump straight into that team and make a difference for us, like I suppose Tanguy and Dembele. Lo Celso, if he had a pre-season, and obviously if he hadn't picked up the injury now, could have fallen into that category. But I think it's important as well to buy those young maybe players as well. Don't just devote all your money to buying these players who can jump in right now. It's important to have the likes of Ryan Sessegnon and Jack Clarke there, who you can kind of mould into the player that you want them to be as a future player. And just moving on to the topic of Jack Clarke, I put out a poll on my community tab maybe a week ago at this stage, asking if you thought Jack Clarke should have been recalled. It's just out of interest, those in the stream now, do you think Tottenham should recall Jack Clarke from Leeds in January? Apparently there is a clause in there that we can recall him in January, but I suppose if we did, we would do it to maybe loan him out to another team for the rest of the season, because he's not getting any game time. He's played I think 45 minutes for them this season, which was an EFL Cup game against Salford, so he's not getting any game time there at all, which is obviously absolutely awful for a player that you are loaning out. But I posted up my community tab just over a week ago. There were 111 people voted, and 88% of you said yes, he should be recalled, which I personally agree with. Just a few comments there. Owen Brock said, what's the point in him just sitting on the bench doing nothing and suffering for it when he could play for a youth team? Joshua Humphrey saying, definitely getting no game time, so may as well develop in the under 23s or something. So that is a video I'll be putting out in the next week or so, kind of an analysis of whether or not we should recall Jack Clarke. And I see Delboy saying he won't play for us either, but I think if we do recall him, he will be loaned out again, maybe to a lower championship team, because Leeds obviously pushing for promotion. They have a very, very strong squad in place at the moment. Sending him off to a lower championship team, maybe down to League One. He certainly needs game time, and he's not getting that at the moment. And he did break into the Leeds squad around October, November last season, so I suppose there is still time for him to have a similar season to what he had last year, but ultimately we want him to improve, and that's just not going to happen as he's playing for the Leeds youth squads, youth teams at the moment. And actually an interesting goal there in the Champions League in Group D. Bayer Leverkusen 0, Lokomotiv Moscow 1. It's a bit of a surprise there. Actually, Gregor Krakowiak, a player who's played with PSG, West Brom, has just scored for Moscow. I didn't even know he was gone there, but definitely a surprising goal in that group. But yeah, I think summarising tonight, I suppose, for David Webb saying, what do you think of Ndombele today? He seemed a bit, I wouldn't say distracted, but he didn't seem 100% on his game. There was a few moments where he kind of took his eye off the ball and he lost possession. But I think we saw from him a bit more maybe in his first few games, but there's a bit tonight as well where, like, you know when you're watching a game on TV and you can see a player with the ball and you can see a brilliant pass but it's completely on his blind side, and you're thinking, oh, if only he could see that. I think there's a few of those with Ndombele tonight especially that I noticed, where there are these passes you can see looking for obviously a much higher angle, that it's a really good obviously opportunity, but he actually managed to spot those passes and pull them off. So I think his vision is absolutely ridiculous, and that is something that could really benefit us in games like this if the rest of the players around him are on form. It wasn't his best performance today. He was, I was kind of thinking of that, the highlights I've seen of his performances against Barcelona and Manchester City in the Champions League for Lyon, and I was hoping he could kind of emulate a few of those, and you could see that style of play almost coming out, but he couldn't quite pull it off. And coming back from injury, obviously he's not going to be at his best, but I suppose you can say all you want about in the Premier League the way he's trying to adapt to a new style of play, but Champions League is where he really flourished for Lyon. I think that's where he should be at his best for us, and tonight he just couldn't quite do it. Delboy saying he'd easily get a championship club after his form when he first broke through. That's about Jack Clarke. Yeah, he definitely could, and see, the thing is, if he gets on the pitch, he will prove that he's good enough to get into that Leeds team, but he's not getting the time to prove it, so it's a bit of a roundabout situation there. How does he show that he can get into that team? I suppose maybe you could say playing in those youth sides, but he is playing with them and he's doing well for them, even making his England youth debut. And Marcelo Bielsa just doesn't seem to favour him at the moment. And an excuse that he's using is that he has 6 players loaned in at the moment, but he can only use 5 in any one game, and he seems to be opting for the same 5 every time. And I was actually speaking to a Leeds fan last week, or the week before, and he said Jack Harrison, who's on loan from Manchester City, he's a young winger playing in the same position as Jack Clarke, and he said he doesn't see the attraction of him at all. This player, maybe coming in from City, obviously would be seen as a better option to someone coming in from Tottenham. But he said he doesn't see the attraction that Bielsa sees in Harrison at all, and he'd rather Jack Clarke be in that team. So, I mean, we could see Clarke breaking into that side soon if Harrison's form continues to be at the low level it is. But right now, it's just not happening for Jack Clarke, and it is really unfortunate. Alexander Hilton saying, was Lo Celso on the bench? He wasn't. Lo Celso was out until the end of October, start of November. Of course, he suffered that injury for Argentina over the international break in the friendly against Chile. What started as an ankle injury and then became a nothing to worry about groin injury has turned out to be a 2-month hip injury, which is a really confusing situation there. But he's out. He'll be back in full training towards the end of October. So I imagine we wouldn't see him back in first team action until after that international break. So it could be well into November before he pulls on the jersey again. Alexander Hilton also saying, would you sell Kane? No, I don't think there's even any consideration there. I mean, obviously I think it would be a bit different if someone did come in with a 250 million pound offer, but it's not going to happen. You know, he's not. I've said this quite a bit. He's one of the best strikers in the world, but his finishing is poor. I think. Sorry, it's not that his finishing is poor. It's inconsistent, I suppose. Like, I'd say Heung-min Son is the best finisher in our squad. Harry Kane misses a lot of chances, but it's the quality that he has to get into those situations so often that he does. His ratio is poor, but it's because he's there so much. He scores so many goals, and he's such a key part of our squad at the moment. I wouldn't even consider selling him unless an insane offer did come in for him. Alexander Hilton as well saying Llorente scored for Napoli against Liverpool, and I must admit I did enjoy that moment yesterday. Virgil van Dijk making that error for Llorente to go in and wrap up the game for Napoli, which I suppose for us came 3.5 months too late, but it was still fun to see. And the Liverpool meltdown on Twitter afterwards as they lost this Champions League game, it was pretty fun to watch, I won't lie. But obviously I would have preferred that it did happen 3.5 months ago. But look, to summarise this game tonight, it certainly wasn't the performance we were expecting. It wasn't the performance that we needed. As someone said a while ago, it kind of went back to that performance we had against Newcastle, and we've taken a major step back after making a major step forward for that Crystal Palace game on Saturday. Welcome Ratty started to the stream. So it was really disappointing to see that kind of the drop in quality and just take it a big step back. And as I said, I know it can be kind of not blamed on, but part of it can be explained, I suppose, by those 5 changes made to the first team. And when it was players like Dele Alli coming in who just wasn't good enough tonight, Ben Davies, I think defensively in that situation, playing against players like Pedense and Valbuena, I think Danny Rose would have been better suited to that position. And Sanchez coming in for Serge Aurier. Those were the 3 main ones that I think were the difference between the performance that we saw against Palace on Saturday and this game tonight. But also, I mean, you have to acknowledge Olympiacos' quality and how well they did on the night. I mean, they started the game obviously really well, but to fight back from 2-0 down, as I said, for a team like them they're not playing against that team who've started poorly in the Premier League or Tottenham who always bottle it. For them, because they wouldn't be as tuned into the Premier League as obviously we would be, they're playing the Champions League finalists, and it was a massive game for them. And they did so well to keep the belief, I suppose, and fight back from 2-0 down. And when they did get to that stage, to manage the game, and they deserved the point that they got. Maybe they even deserved more, but they were happy with the point, so I'm not going to say too much about that. Alexander Hilton saying, what do you think about Lloris? There's nothing he could have done for the 2 goals. I mean, the first one for Pedense, absolutely exquisite finish into the far corner, and the penalty, he's gone the wrong way. I mean, it's a penalty, you expect players to score them. The onus isn't on the keeper to keep it out. He made some saves early on in the game, but he wasn't overexerted to make any of those saves. The one from Pedense was straight at him. Valbuena and Guerrero had a few chances as well, all straight at him. They weren't the most difficult saves to make. So I suppose an average performance from him. Nothing he could do about the goals, but he didn't help us in terms of making quality saves at all. But I will be putting out a player ratings video tomorrow, so I'll be going a bit more in detail about all the individual performances. I remember the last time we did this video, someone said, I think it was after the Newcastle game, someone commented saying that I struggle to put players under 5 or 6, which like 5 or 6 should mean average. And I'm saying, no, these are really poor, but I'll give them a 5. I can assure you, Eriksen and Ali tomorrow will not be getting 5s. They'll be lower than that. But yeah, I'll be going through those performances again, and trying to individually kind of pick apart the different things that we saw from the players. And Alexander Hinton giving us another update here in the Champions League. Manchester City have scored, so they're winning 1-0 away to Shakhtar Donetsk, looking to be the first English team to pick up a victory in Europe this season. Riyad Mahrez has given them the lead after 25 minutes, and Bayer Leverkusen have equalised against Lokomotiv Moscow. Benedikt Hövedes scoring an own goal for them, so it's 1-1 there. And PSG still winning 1-0 against Real Madrid, I suppose, in what is the biggest Champions League game tonight. I suppose Atletico Madrid drawing 0-0 with Juventus as well is another one of interest. But certainly some great games on tonight, and I think for us now, just kind of preparing for that game on Saturday against Leicester. And you could see from Pochettino's frustration and his anger throughout that first half, and a bit throughout the second half as well. He's not going to give them an easy time during the week, and he's going to batter them in the hope that we can see a response against Leicester on Saturday. And I think we do need to see a response, because if we don't, we'll be beaten, because that's just the way Leicester are at the moment. And if we don't turn up, I've no doubt that we will suffer from it. I think we won there last season. We won, I think it was 2-0 maybe. We won there. I think Heung-min Son scored a great goal before half time. But yeah, Leicester have not had the best start to the season at the moment. Just getting up the Premier League table here. Obviously can't read too much into it after 5 games, but Leicester have had a decent start. They've been unfortunate to lose to Manchester United at the weekend. They're in 5th position, so they're on the same amount of points as us, 8 points. They've won 2, drawn 2, and lost 1. And for all we've been saying about us being in 3rd place after a poor start, we're only 2 points ahead of Norwich in 13th, and we're 7 points behind Liverpool, who are top, but we're only 6 points ahead of Watford, who are bottom. So we are 3rd, but we're the best of the rest at the moment, and that's going to change quite a bit throughout the season. Let's have a look at Leicester's the results so far this season. Obviously, that defeat to Manchester United at the weekend was a bit unfortunate. They beat Bournemouth 3-1 before that. They had a victory against Sheffield United. If I can get this back here. Victories against Bournemouth and Sheffield United. That was after drawing to Wolves and Leicester. So some 2 good points there to pick up at home to Wolves and away to Chelsea. Then beating some 2 sides to expect them to beat, and suffering their first defeat of the season against Manchester United. So it's not going to be an easy game at all. We need to show up, and there will be a lot more rotation. We won't see the same team that we saw tonight. I think we'll see Rose back. We'll see Aurier back. I don't think we'll see both of Dele Alli or Christian Eriksen. We might see one of them. But if the 2 of them start on Saturday, there'll be a lot of questions asked of Mauricio Pochettino. And it might even be a case where we see Son, Lamela and Lucas. I'm not sure if that is something we have seen before, because they're 3 very similar players, a lot more pace about them rather than creativity. I suppose with regards to Lucas and Lamela, Son would have the best of both worlds. He's a very, very quick player with a lot of creativity as well. Darren Fearon saying, I'm disappointed with Ndombele. He looks a bit too laid back, which I think is a fair comment. But look, he is still trying to adapt. At the moment, he's trying to come back from an injury as well. It's a bit of a difficult situation for him. And as well, he's at Lyon last season were playing really, really well. And he's playing in a team at the moment who aren't exactly high on confidence. As you can see from tonight, you'd imagine that Palace performance on Saturday should have changed that. But at the moment, they're just not consistent, not the highest confidence. It is a difficult situation for him, but I imagine it's going to be quickly ratified, and he will be a very, very important player for us as the season progresses, as I expect Lo Celso and Sessegnon to be as well. And of course, they both come back for their injuries and get into the first team as quickly as possible. If you have enjoyed this stream, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. And if you enjoyed this video as well and you want more content like this, please hit that subscribe button down below. I post, as I said, interactive live streams, match previews, reviews, player rating videos, breaking news, anything you want to know about Tottenham that will be on this channel. So please hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell so you get notified whenever I upload. That is all I have time for tonight. We're moving on to Saturday now, where hopefully we can pick up 3 points against Leicester. Thanks for watching.